This is McGraw live in the morning on the Big 550 KTRS. He's out of town for a few days. I am Paul Harris. Happy to have the headphones on and ready to roll through this hour on the Big 550 KTRS and our online app all over the world and via KTRS.com and STLtoday.com and KPLR TV 11.2. Happy to have you on with us as well this morning. Coming up in this hour, we're going to have two of the people who were at City Hall last night when the melee broke out in the discussions about a citizens oversight board for the St. Louis Police Department. Jeff Roeder, who's the St. Louis Police Officer Association business manager and kind of serves as their spokesperson, will join me later on, as well as Nick Pister of the Post-Dispatch, who was covering the event last night. So all of that coming up in just a few. But to start things off this morning, let me introduce you to Dr. Julia Shaw. She is a researcher at the University of Bedfordshire in the UK who has recently done some very interesting work on false memories and implanting false memories. And I think this study says a lot that we all need to learn about whenever you hear somebody talking about something that they remember, whether it's from the recent past or the distant past, maybe it wasn't really a memory of theirs. Or maybe if you're talking about police interrogations where somebody is in an interrogation room for hour upon hour and a police officer is asking them about things that happened, maybe when they confess to that crime, it isn't actually what happened, but they're thinking that it happened. Not just to try to get out of that room and get out of that interrogation, but because at a certain point maybe they've learned, they think, that those things did actually occur. Julia, welcome to the Big 550.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Julia is joining me via Skype from the UK, and if you're watching us online, you can see both of us on there as well. So tell me a little bit about the research and how you went about and conducted research into implanting false memories. Who agrees to have false memories implanted in them?
Who agrees? Participants. So in this study, what we did is we recruited university students who were willing to partake in what we called just an emotional memory study. So we didn't tell them it was about false memories, of course, but we did tell them it was about memory in general. And so these participants allowed us to contact their parents so that we could get information about their teenage years, their early adolescence. And what we then did with that information, that accurate information about these participants' personal past, is we took those real fragments, so such as the best friend of the participant at the time, where they grew up, and we wove these into very brief narratives, very brief stories, where we told these participants that they'd committed a crime that had never in fact occurred. And then after 3 sessions, each 1 week apart, these participants didn't just come to accept that they'd committed these crimes that we'd suggested they had, but they confabulated or filled out these details, what they were seeing at the time, what they were hearing, what they were tasting even sometimes, reenacting at times crimes they had never committed. So really what we would call fully internalizing that this had happened to them and exactly how.
How much detail were they able to remember about things that never happened?
A surprising amount, actually. So they were fleshing out dozens and dozens of details on average. In fact, to be classified as having a false memory in this particular study, part of the definition was that they had to have more than 10 details. And so what we had provided to them was the who, what, when, and where. So we said, for example, your parents indicated that when you were 14, you assaulted someone with a weapon and a police called your parents. And can you tell me, you were with your friend Paul, you were in San Francisco, and it was fall. Can you tell me everything you remember about this event from start to finish, no matter how trivial it may seem? That was the only instruction we gave them. And so from those very, very few basic details, they wove extensive stories that made sense within their life stories, picking out real places and real people, but putting them together in a way that wasn't real.
Were you amazed by that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm amazed hearing you telling me about it and explaining how it works, and the fact that you told somebody, your parents said this happened, and we're not talking about when you were 3, when your memory would obviously be a little bit fuzzy, but when you were a teenager, which means if you've got college students, it's just a few years ago, and they remembered it as if it had actually happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was absolutely surprising. Even within my colleagues, my group of colleagues, there was disagreement as to whether it was even possible that the plausibility of this study would go over well with the participants, and whether or not they would just completely outright reject the notion that this had happened to them. Never mind that they would then flesh it out to the extent that they eventually did.
What percentage of them did reject it and say, no, that never happened?
So 70% formed full false memories.
70%?
70%, which was about twice to three times that what we were expecting. Wow. So it was a very high success rate. And so in terms of people who rejected it, because we also had other categories that were sort of softer.
Oh, we lost her. Did the Skype disappear there? It froze? All right. Julia, if you're still there, we're going to try to reconnect with you because I want to hear about this. 70% of the people were convinced that they had a memory that actually had not happened. And as I pointed out, we're talking about something that happened just a few years before. College students were told this happened when you were 14 years old, and it had not happened to them, and they seem to have been able to remember that. That's stunning to me, and I think it has major implications for exactly what I was talking about before, police interrogations, etc. Do we have Julia back on yet? Not quite? Having trouble connecting with her? Should we try connecting her on the landline? Or do you want to take a break, Andrew? Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a 60-second commercial break. We'll see if we can reconnect with her via Skype here on the Big 550 KTRS.